Okay, so Mark Jefferson Golding, elected president of the People's National Party in November of 2020, became the leader of the opposition then, joins us now to share his policies and vision for Jamaica, should he form, or should his party form the next government, the next administration. Welcome to the show, sir. Thank you for being here.
Morning, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
How are
ready
you, sir?
to go.
Yeah, good to be here.
Good
How are
to
you,
have
sir?
you.
I'm great, man. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So let's talk about your budget presentation.
Okay.
First of all, how was that for you? We'll talk about...
Yeah, it was very positive, actually. The feedback was great. People really, I think, were relieved and filled with hope to hear what we are planning to do for the country in the areas of housing, in the areas of education, in the areas of the economy, healthcare. You know, so it was a fairly wide survey of things that I covered. I didn't cover everything. You know, I didn't want it to make it excessively long. So there are some things that we still haven't discussed, but that will happen in due course. But overall, the response was very positive. Some commentators wanted us to cost it. We had costed it, but I didn't feel like that was really what I wanted to bring into it. It was more a vision of hope I was trying to portray. So we had a subsequent press conference where we went through the numbers and showed what the things that we were proposing would cost and how we proposed to fund them. So that was another dimension to it after the budget.
Yeah. We have some headlines, some specific things we want to talk about, but how does that work? Do you wait until you hear the Prime Minister and then you do your thing, or you would have put this together from even before that?
It's not really responsive to anybody else because, first of all, the Prime Minister speaks after the leader of the opposition. So he has the opportunity to respond to me, but I don't have the opportunity to respond to him. So our content is really planned literally months and years in advance, because these are ideas that we've been developing over time. Obviously, as you approach the budget season, it tends to intensify, and people are always offering ideas which you have to try and synthesize, go through, and see how they fit into your overall scheme and plan. But yeah, these are not really reactive things. These are things which are developed over time.
So there would have been nothing that you would have heard the Minister of Finance speak to that would have influenced any tweaking, any new ideas?
Yeah, it is an opportunity to respond to the Minister of Finance. So yes, I mean, there are things that she would have said, maybe casting historically something in a particular light or in a way that we don't think is accurate, so we would respond to that. But in terms of the content of our proposals, those originate from us. So, you know, we would be responsive to some of what she is saying where we feel that it's inadequate or inaccurate or whatever.
For our viewers and listeners who may have missed what you said, let's be specific here. What did you say about education?
Well, we were focusing in education on a number of things. First of all, we see absenteeism as a big problem in the country. And we wanted to make life easier for families who have to send their children to school, who are vulnerable from an income perspective. So we've committed to providing a meal for each needy child every day at school. We've also committed to providing a transportation subsidy for up to 20,000 children. Currently 7,500 are getting, and this is really in rural areas where there isn't a public bus service. And we've also outlined our idea of the First in Family scholarship for attending university. So if you qualify for university and are the first in your family to have gone to university, the government will provide you with a full scholarship for that period. And, you know, that's a very transformational thing for people, for families in particular that don't have the benefit of established history of university education. Being the first really gives them a leg up, and the whole family gets the benefit of that because others will be assisted as well by that child having achieved that level of education. So those were three critical things that we spoke to, apart from the focus on early childhood and primary school and a remedial program in secondary school for dealing with the deficiencies that we're seeing of the standards of the students matriculating from primary to secondary as well. And you know, the idea of having a vocational training component that starts early in high school education and goes right through with idea being we build a proper laboratory in each high school over time so that our kids can be exposed to vocational training and get certified up to even level 4 of heart by the time they leave school, so they can go straight into the workplace as a certified and trained person, for those who aren't so interested in an academic pursuit. So these are some of our ideas in education.
Why are your ideas different or better for the country than those posited by the administration?
Well, they're different. The things we've come up with are not things that the government has espoused, and they have been designed really to deal with real issues of concern or issues of hardship that the people are feeling. So this is why I think our situation has differentiated ourselves from the government. They are obviously trying to do things which they feel will be good for the country or make them popular or whatever. But we're really focused on the core things that we think affect the people who are really struggling, access to education, access to going to school 5 days a week, access to university education, things like that. In housing, we've put forward a number of things, using the housing trust in a more creative way to try and provide, for example, access to housing through the deposit grant that we have, $1 billion earmarked within the housing trust. This is not a charge on the budget. That would be providing a $500,000 grant to first-time buyers up to the age of 35, as long as they've been a contributor for at least 2 years, because finding a deposit is a challenge for a lot of people in trying to get on the home owning ladder. And we have some other ideas around housing as well, which have been very attractive. We have the rent-to-own scheme, where somebody who can't provide a pay slip because they're in the informal sector. They might be, in entertainment, or they might be just buying and selling, but they're not formally employed. They can't establish proof of income. We'd allow them to rent initially for a period of time, the rent being equivalent to the mortgage payment. And once they've shown they can meet the rental payments over, say, 6 months, then that would qualify them for the mortgage, and they could flip into becoming an owner and a mortgage. And we also have another aspect to it. For those who are currently renting a home but they're finding it difficult to make ends meet, so they can't save for a deposit, they could go in as a tenant in the house. We'd establish an account, a deposit account for them. A portion of their rent would be credited to that account, and as soon as that account has built up the resources to meet the deposit, they would then buy the house and flip into ownership with a mortgage. These are the kind of things we're trying to do to make access to home ownership easy for our Jamaican people. I
know the Minister of Finance made some announcements about, there would have been a Prime Minister who made the announcements about the NHT developments. The Minister of Finance would have also made recommendations as opposed to plans for education as well. Is it that you think those did not go far enough? Or are you you're invalidating them, but
I don't think they didn't really address the issues that we were seeking to address. So the Minister of Finance said that the loan limit would be increased, but in an inflationary environment, that doesn't really address the issues we're seeking to address, because what we have found is as they increase the loan limits, typically the house prices move up as well, because developers take advantage of that. So it doesn't really have the beneficial effect that one would think. So we were really looking at things about access to finding the deposit, which we know is a challenge for many people, and facilitating people who are informally employed who can't get into the mortgage market at all because they don't have the wherewithal to prove their income. So everything that we did or announced was really designed to address a pressing need that we have identified, the people have brought to us, and that we know needs to be solved.
A pressing need, sir, is crime. How we fix that? Can we fix this? How we fix that?
Well, I believe it needs a multifaceted approach. We went through 7, 8 years of focusing on what I'd call very hard policing solutions, things that states of emergency being used on a routine basis. We had multiple states of emergency over that period. Very little to show for it in terms of reduced crime. And we were always saying to the government, look, that strategy doesn't deal with crime because it doesn't lead to any sustainable outcomes, prosecutions through investigations of offences and so on. So it just scrapes people up, and when the thing has to come to an end, they're just returned. Often some of them who would have gone in innocence are coming out criminalized by the associations they would have been forced into while they were in detention and so on. So we were not in favour of it. In fact, we feel it's unconstitutional to use a state of emergency in that routine policing way, and that's before the court. We're awaiting the judgment of the court on that. We feel there needs to be a broader approach, a multifaceted approach again. Yes, we need to give the police the tools that they need to do their job, so the numbers have to be brought up. And that has happened in the last couple of years, where we've seen, as a result of increased recruitment, we're seeing more police on the ground, and we're seeing the results of that. Also, we feel that there needs to be some legislative work done to give the police greater tools to investigate serious criminals. And we have a proposal which we put on the table for how we would address that. But apart from that, there's how do you deal with the root causes of crime? You know, we have always believed in tailored social interventions that are necessary in order to give youths another pathway rather than going into badness and criminality. So we had the Unite for Change, which was abandoned by this government. We see the private sector doing something very similar now, but on a limited scale, called Project STAR. We want to scale that up and make that a national program so that youths at risk can be receive interventions that put them on a different pathway, you know, training, life skills, literacy, remedial stuff, and readiness for work, financial literacy, getting them off the badness trail onto the righteousness trail, so to speak. And things like the Peace Management Initiative, which again has been defunded and abandoned, where you rope in and persons of influence in communities who can help to manage situations before they get out of control, and you empower them to do that work. It's a very effective way of trying to tamp down and avoid reprisals and things escalating, which is a major cause of murder in the country. So these are things that we believe work and need to be funded and supported by the state.
Yep. Final question from me, sir, as we're out of time.
Okay.
Why do you think you're going to be the next government?
I think the people are ready for change. There's been a lot of corruption. Prime Minister himself has a cloud over him with the Integrity Commission report, which is unaddressed. His returns are still not certified. There are 8 MPs who are under investigation for illicit enrichment. People are fed up with all that. Cost of living is high. People are feeling it's going to get worse with what's going on internationally and the new tariff regime and the countermeasures. We're going to see prices go up again. I haven't heard the government say anything about how they plan to deal with that. So I think people want to see a change. They want a government they can have trust and confidence in, and one that's focused on the real issues that are facing the people, and we're providing solutions that address those needs. So I think it's going to be our turn next.
And you think based on what you've presented in the budget, you've given them enough?
I think we've given them some very interesting and useful suggestions, which I think will appeal and have appealed. And we haven't fully exhausted our cupboard. We have some more things to come.
So when are we going to know what the more things to come are?
Well, you will just have to listen. And these things are, we choose appropriate moments for doing these things. You know, we're in a game where people can appropriate your ideas and call them their own. And we're very aware of that. So
but you're running against the clock. Is that a concern or no?
Not really, because what we put out in the budget was very substantial and covered a wide array of different areas. And we're repeating those things so people kind of imbibe them and get to understand them and appreciate them. And there are a few other areas which we haven't touched on yet and where we have more to say.
Okay.
Good luck, sir. God bless
you very much.
Family, sir.
Thank you so much. God bless.
President, sit with us for a second.
Oh, yeah.
President of the People's National Party, Mr. Mark Jefferson Golding. What's going on this?
After the break, we're catching up with the drama teacher who went viral after the 80% challenge that she gave to her students. What's that? Tell you about it after this.